Guru gudu, guru gudu guru, giri 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 giri, dasange, dasange, giri 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 giri, guru gudu, guru gudu guru, giri 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 giri, dasange, dasange, giri 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 giri, guru gudu, guru gudu guru, giri 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 giri, dasange, dasange, giri giri giri.
Hi, everybody. So this is Anaya, and I'm back, and I'm talking about this work that I have a passion for, which is this Pia Mellody work. I look at it as my hobby. I love this work, and I love it primarily because I feel so much better after I finish going over any of the symptoms and doing the work that's in the workbook. And one of the things that I love about Pia Mellody's work is her work with boundaries.
The internal boundary is actually much more difficult for most people to create for themselves. And so I want to spend some time really talking to you about this. Well, let's go through the statement for the internal boundary. The first part of it says, I create what I think and feel and am in control of what I do or don't do. Now, what that statement really says is that I am responsible for how I create myself. And the first part of this internal boundary statement says, dispute what I just told you. It says, I create what I think and feel and am in control of what I do or don't do. Inherent to that is you are not responsible for how I am taking in data, assigning it meaning, and creating my emotional health. I am responsible for that, even if it is in reaction to what you're doing out there. It's very hard for us to take in. It's very hard for us to do that, especially with a person that is very close to us. We want to blame others. The closer somebody is to us, the more often we blame them for how miserable we are making ourselves. Now, let me add another component here. For people who are very codependent or very immature, and who've had a lot of child abuse in their family of origin, how they give meaning to incoming data oftentimes is very, very skewed, especially around people that they're very close to, which is another reason why it makes it hard to not blame or externalize your problem and fail to use your internal boundary around those that are very close. Okay, now, this statement here, I create what I think and feel and am in control of what I do or don't do, pushes energy in what direction? Does it push energy away from me, or does it push energy towards me? Now look at it real carefully. I create what I think and feel and am in control of what I don't do or don't do. In other words, I take responsibility for me. Does that push against me or push against the other person? Pushes against you. It contains me. It says, I'm responsible for me and I can no longer blame you for how I'm creating me.
One of the things she says is that before we can have an internal boundary, we have to set the external boundary first so we can protect our mind, our heart, our body, our emotions. In other words, what's an external boundary? An external boundary is the distance that I need from any given individual in order to be safe physically first, or the distance that I need from an individual in order to be functional. So I was giving this guy a lot of room. I needed a lot of space from him. And as I stepped back, a functional person understands what that means. You're stepping back, you need some more space, that's fine. I stepped back, he stepped forward. I stepped to the side, he stepped to the right. So finally I had to say, hey, you know what? I need some room. I need some space. And he goes, well, why? What did I do? When I stand too close to people, I am no longer able to see who they are. I begin to get into enmeshment. So, as a matter of fact, Pia says that in order for an internal boundary to work, you have to get far enough away from somebody so you can see who this person is. And people get offended by that. But my thing is this: do you want me to act out my family drama on you? No? Well, then let me step back so I can see that you're not auntie and you're not uncle. And you see, so I stepped back from him was so that I could place my internal boundary on, which meant that I was paying attention to what I was letting out of my mouth. When I stand too close to someone, I don't have access to my internal boundary, which regulates my emotional well-being. So I stood back, and I was able to remind myself that he really doesn't share the same values that I have in regards to privacy. And it's not my job to change another human being. I set limits on myself, on my own behavior, and I allow another human being to be who they are. But since he asked, so he invited, he asked me, is there a problem? And I gently told him what got back to me. And so until the trust is rebuilt again, I like this guy, and he's really smart. Until the trust is rebuilt again, there's a certain distance that I need to stand so that I can remember who I'm talking to and that we have different values. Another example of functional boundaries. So my ex would call in the wee hours in the morning because he's a night person and he's a night owl, and so but I have told him repeatedly that I'm asleep after 9. But this is what I have done to be completely at peace with whatever he needs to do for himself. At 9 o'clock sharp every night, I turn my phone off. So people who are close to me, they know if you want to communicate with Anaya, you need to call before 9. So what did I do? I set an external boundary with the phone. Right. Why? Because it is my job to protect and contain myself. So I can't control somebody else, but I can control me. But what I did was I prayed. And God told me the limit that I needed to set in order to protect myself from his incoming reality that happens at midnight, and to protect myself from even tripping off the fact that the incoming reality is happening or not. And I tell you, ever since I have loved myself enough to set that limit and turn my cell phone off at 9, I've been just bouncing around just as happy. I'm like, baby, that's all you. So the last example of boundaries that I want to share with you is in regards to this guy named Fred. Now, truthfully, Fred reminds me so much of the things about myself that I don't like, that when I see Fred, he kind of irritates me. But I'd been lying with how close I was standing to him. I wasn't paying attention to the truth, right? And the truth was, I don't particularly care for Fred, and in order for me and Fred to have peace in the group, I would probably need to stay 6 feet away, right? Not to hold any resentments toward Fred, but basically it would be best if Fred and I just left each other alone. Because when I leave Fred alone and I don't have any resentments, it's peaceful. That's why the Bible says, if at all possible, live peaceably with all men. I have to find the place of peace, and that's where I stand. That's the limit that I need in order to walk in love. So I hope you enjoyed the broadcast today, and don't forget your boundaries. God bless you.
So Corky has some rules to follow over here too. All right? Now, we'll start with what? What's the first thing we should start with here? What was the first thing I told you? Yes, they need to set an external boundary with each other. Now, I usually have the person on the receiving end of the confrontation establish where they want to be, because generally speaking, they need more room. So, Bill, what I want you to do, and set your external boundary with her, by looking her in the eyes and saying to yourself, she's going to confront him. How far back do I need to get in order to hear it? Without, if you're too close, it's going to smack you in the face. If it's too far away, you can't hear her. So start moving back, and when you think you're in the right place, to have enough space to push energy against her and stop it so that you can determine true, not true, or questionable, then stop your chair. So start moving back and think about that. Keep looking at her now as you move back. You guys can do this anywhere. If you're sitting confronting each other, do it. If you're standing in the kitchen, get the distance before you confront somebody, okay? Felt like that? Now remember, you're going to have to put energy out here and block what she's saying and think to yourself, is this true, not true, or questionable? And the distance is about having enough space here. Is that about right for you? Okay, Corky, now you too need to set an external boundary with him. The thing is, whoever needs the greatest distance gets the distance. So would you rather be further back or closer to Bill? Okay, so then you need to stay put because he needs the distance.